Welcome back to the shop. Today, I guess we're going to get started on the reed vise. I got a lot of comments on the copper kettle. Thank you for the feedback on that. I'm still sort of sussing my way through the internet trying to figure out what's relevant, what's not relevant. I've seen everything, as you can imagine, from using beer to clean copper to using beer, and actually with the beer stills and stuff, and some of it makes sense. But anyway, thank you for all the comments on that, but by and large, most of the people are really wanting to see me get started on this reed vise. So, let's go ahead and start tearing it down and get it in the sandblaster. Alright. Looks like we've got a pin here, and then this pops out somehow, so we'll figure that out. And this looks like it has some sort of a gland nut in here. We might clean this up and then come back to it when we can actually see what's going on in there. Alright, I'm going to have to blast this and then clean it up some more so I can figure out exactly what's going on here. I thought this pin would have popped out, and it very well may, but I don't want to force anything until I know what's happening. So, look at my new cutting table. You know, it doesn't take long to get ruined. Anyway, over to the sandblaster. Alright, so we can see this is a number 103R, manufactured by the Reed, made by the Reed Manufacturing Corp. I'm going to have to do some research, figure out what the date is on all this stuff. Anyway, like I said, there's a lot of feedback on this, people wanting to see this restoration, so I want to, like all my projects, want to do a good job on this one. But the most rewarding projects I shoot at this time of day when the light's horrible, as it comes in through the side of the shop. But anyway, the most rewarding projects are the ones that sort of give you a little grief along the way, in my opinion. And this by no means is causing me any grief so far, but there's always little challenges. And the first thing is I have to, now that I've got this cleaned up, I can sort of see what's going on. There appears to be a dovetail that this Acme nut rides in. And this is in phenomenal shape. Just absolutely phenomenal shape. I was tempted to stop sandblasting this, but you can still see the mill marks where they milled this out if they had like a broach or something, however they cut this. But this has no wear on it at all. The jaws are pristine. There's no hacksaw marks in it. There's none of the standard apprentice marks like AVE says. But anyway, what I've got to do now is figure out how to get this out of here. And typically in a situation where there's something that looks like it's an interference fit, it's prudent to sort of tread lightly, if you will. I'm going to put a little bit of heat on it, and I'm going to hit it with a small hammer and a little brass drift and see if I can make any progress. Now in theory, what you want to do is create a difference in heat, difference in temperatures across there, so that you're not expanding the pin at the same rate as you are the outside material. And then ideally you want to fix this somewhere so you don't burn your hands. No signs of moving yet. I'm going to keep working on it and bring you back when I figure something out. Alright, now this has like a brad point set screw in it. I think that's a brad point. And then they also have something called a dog point. And then, anyway, it's usually some sort of retention device. And there's a lot of schmoo down in there, so I'm going to try to blow that out. And then, see if I can't figure out how to get this gland nut off of here. Alright, so I've got this chucked in my little benchtop vise. We're going to try to knock this loose and see if we can get it come out of there. Ha! I got that on tape too. Look at that. Now look at that. That's very interesting. There is a two-part ring in here that may or may not be from the factory. I'm gonna have to wire wheel this up and bring you back and see what's going on with this, because this brake looks imperfect, which leads me to believe somebody may have been in here before, and maybe this thing got broke right off the bat. The thrust washer, a little bit of grit in there, but not too bad. The interesting thing right now, this is me theorizing. How would they have manufactured this otherwise if this didn't separate into two? That would be a real conundrum to try to make that, wouldn't it? Unless this came off, which it doesn't appear to. So anyway, I am going to wire wheel this up and wipe it down, bring it back. And this, you know, this is a good example. I've been watching some people lately, and I'm not knocking what do they call it? The Vapo Rust and the vinegar, and you know, honestly, I was seriously contemplating using the muriatic acid. However, those things, they're not going to get rid of this grit, in my estimation. The little bit that I've used that kind of stuff, like my parts washer does a pretty good job, but you really need to physically get these things apart and then mechanically get this stuff clean if you want it to be right. So just be leery of stuff in bottles that say, oh, you know, there's a place for it. Do not get me wrong. But in this particular case, I'm very glad that I was able to get this apart, so now I can get all this schmoo off of there. Alright, so this is wire wheeled up, and the brake on here it's a perfectly clean brake. I do not know if they manufactured it that way, if it was easier to just make this and then split it down the middle, because it's broke out on the inside. There's sort of a relief there and a relief there that almost looks intentional, and then there's no comparable size bits inside of here. Again, all conjecture. I would be interested to know if anyone else has had one of these vices apart and what they ran into. But otherwise, I really don't see how this could have... I mean, anything's possible, don't get me wrong. But personally, I don't know enough about the manufacturing process to know how they would have done that so cleanly. You'd think it would have been more signs of this. This looks like it was turned, and there doesn't seem to be a seam there. Anyway, very interesting. I don't think it's a problem, though. This I'm going to dry out with the torch a little bit, bring it back to the media blaster, and get some of the grit that's inside, because I was unable to blast this before. So, alright, we'll let it run the parts washer for a little bit. Alright, welcome back to the shop. Day 2 of the Reed vise. It's cleaned up pretty good. I've got one sticking point. Literally, it's the nut and that's caught in this dovetail would come out, except for this mechanism here that sort of sets the backlash and keeps the dovetail from pushing back out. It will not come out. I've soaked it, I've heated it, I've pounded on it, and it hasn't shown any indication of moving, and I don't know how to get it out of there. So I'm going to leave well enough alone because I can clean it up. There's really no reason to get that out of here. I ran this through the parts washer, so it has a couple residual spots of grease because the sandblaster won't get grease, media blaster. But I think what I'm going to do for this, treatment-wise, is I'm not going to paint this. I'm really hard on my vices. This one I didn't finish up very well. I should have put a better coat or of furniture polish on this one. But my Columbia Cleveland vise, I polished it, or at least sort of improved the surface a little bit, and it held up very nicely. So I think I'm going to do that to this one, and I think it'll look nice. And the finish is pretty close to being perfect on this anyway, so it actually shouldn't take too much work. So let me get started, and I'll do a time lapse of that. Alright, so I've got a pretty good handle on the, pretty good start anyway, on the beginning polishing of this vise. In our last viewer episode, we had a lot of neat vices, and everybody paints them, and I think that painting of vice is, you know, arguably the best way to finish a vice for most people. But for me, I am constantly heating stuff up, and I don't want to just torch the paint off of this. And I sure don't want to paint it that flat, matte black oven paint or barbecue grill paint. I don't even think that wouldn't withstand the heat anyway. So I'm going to polish this vise. I've got a pretty good start on it, but it's still got a long way to go. I haven't even gotten past the sandpaper stage yet. So I probably got it up to about 120. And I'm going to keep going over this till it's nice and shiny. And by the time I get to by the time you're seeing the second video, well, I need a day or two to wait for a part to come in. I have an idea that I think is probably one of my best ideas ever. Most of the time when I have that thought, something catastrophic happens and I miscalculate or misjudge or misinterpret or whatever happens. So when I get really excited about things, you know, it's because I'm missing something. And there's a reason it hasn't been done before or whatever. However, you know, there's an outside chance that I might be the first one to do something, or at least that I know of. But I've got what I think is a very interesting and probably awesome solution on how to mount a bench vise. I'm waiting for that to get here. It's going to take a day or two. I'm hoping I'll have it done by Friday. Maybe video up by Friday. I'm not sure exactly when it'll get here. It depends, or Saturday. But anyway, I'm very excited to get to that in part 2. And then we'll do some close-up videos. And we'll get some close-ups on the polishing, and then I'll show you a technique that I learned from watching Active Atom. They've got a really neat channel over there, and anyway, we'll get some paint on these letters. But that's episode number 2, so anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and have a good night.